The attack on Pearl Harbor marked a pivotal shift for the United States. We transitioned overnight from a position of isolationism and neutrality to a nation fully committed to the war effort. What's essential to grasp is that this period likely stands alone in American history. It was a time of near unanimous national unity. A profound sense of national threat pervaded the country, making patriotic duty the driving force behind supporting the war. Essentially, social pressure dictated that opposing the war made you an enemy of the nation. Now let's contrast this with a stark reality. The United States has been involved in conflicts in Asia since before most of you were born. Yet many of us have limited awareness of these wars. We acknowledge troop presence in the Middle East and Africa, but these wars are distant from our daily lives. Unlike the total war of World War II, a societal conflict demanding the participation of everyone from rationing families to children collecting scrap metal, involvement and mobilization on this scale seem unimaginable now. Even considering the aftermath of 9/11, which many of you might not directly remember, the period of American solidarity was fleeting. Within a short time, the nation became divided once more. This unique sense of unity, sparked by a national threat, seems largely confined to the World War II experience. Did we witness the same intensity of anti-German sentiment during World War II as in World War I? The answer is no, and there are a few factors at play. Many individuals of German descent had altered their surnames in the intervening years. As outward identification relied primarily on names, this shift to anglicized surnames reduced their visibility within the population. In contrast, identifying individuals of Japanese descent proved far simpler due to distinct physical characteristics. Consequently, while anti-German sentiment diminished slightly because of reduced visibility, prejudice towards Japanese Americans remained unmitigated. Let's revisit the concept of total war and its implications. In a democracy waging total war, centralized management becomes essential, and in our historical context, that means the federal government. Recall how the federal government assumed unprecedented powers during World War I, primarily with persuasive tactics. World War II, however, witnessed a far more assertive approach. The federal government essentially seized control of the economy and instituted measures like rationing. Interestingly, the federal government began dictating production quotas to private industry. For example, they might instruct Ford or GM to manufacture 100,000 airplanes. These companies, despite the laissez-faire economic principles of the time, complied readily. Why? Remember, they were emerging from the Depression, manufacturing had stalled, and the government was a reliable, well-paying client. This was a tremendous opportunity. As you'll discover in Studs Terkel's The Good War, some individuals were even enthusiastic about the war due to the economic benefits. One person recounts how newfound employment in a war industry factory finally enabled them to purchase a refrigerator, a luxury previously out of reach. Let's see how the federal government utilized propaganda to cultivate wartime enthusiasm. This poster serves as a prime example. Here we see a deliberate portrayal of Hitler and Tojo, emphasizing their menacing features to evoke fear and anxiety. Their threatening posture targets the most cherished American value, our homes, depicted at the bottom. The text reinforces this fear with a stark warning. Our homes are in danger now. Juxtaposed against this alarming message is a simple directive. Keep 'em firing. This cleverly compels viewers to action, channeling their fear into resolve to support the war effort. It's important to recognize the psychological strategy at play here. Similar to Hitler's scapegoating of the Jews, this poster exploits the human tendency to unify against a common enemy. The message suggests that our enemies define who we are as Americans. While the U.S. government wasn't driven by anti-Semitism or racism, it strategically employed this technique to foster national unity in wartime. Let's take a closer look at this propaganda poster as an example of how the U.S. government used imagery to cultivate wartime fervor. Here, we see the central figures depicted as dangerous snakes, a clear symbol of evil and treachery. The portrayal strips the enemy, Germany and Japan, of their humanity, making them easier to hate and defeat. Just like the Germans were depicted as barbaric guerrillas in World War I propaganda, here the imagery serves the same purpose, to dehumanize the enemy. It's a psychological tactic. By making the enemy seem less than human, the poster implicitly justifies violence against them. The text reinforces this message with a clear call to action. Stamp them out. This leaves no room for ambivalence. The enemy must be utterly destroyed. Propaganda like this played a significant role in mobilizing public opinion and support for the war effort. The underlying message is that true patriotism requires hatred for the enemy, and this hatred is justified because the enemy is fundamentally evil and inhuman. Please proceed to answer the questions in the assignment on Canvas. If you have any questions, you can post them in the open forum discussion or contact the professor using Canvas email.